So the problem of all that is when your brain gets overwhelmed, it stops problem solving and it flips the autopilot. You stop thinking about what you're doing and start doing what you've always done. So in cookery terms, you're not creating a meal from scratch, you're pulling out a ready meal. Okay, I'm going to start off with a warning. Silence makes me incredibly uncomfortable, right? So this is going to be an audience interactive presentation. At times I will be asking you questions. If I don't get responses, I will be picking victims at random. Okay? So you are warned, okay? And I'm going to start off with, who can tell me what that is?
A dog. An IKEA bag for carrying a dog.
Well done, sir. What's that? Hold on, you're getting too far ahead. Get it! Get. Okay.
Do you hate IKEA? Is that why you've got it?
It's a subliminal marketing by IKEA. So you go home and you're all going to be buying Billy bookshelves tomorrow. Okay. So as the lady in the back, what's your name?
Rachel.
Rachel, as he has just spoiled my entire talk, but that's we'll just forget it. Yes, it is is it a Labrador? Is it a Labrador?
Yep.
Okay. It's a Labrador in an IKEA bag. So Rachel, you tell us all why there's a Labrador in an IKEA bag.
Oh no. It's not like some like really small brain can't have a dog unless it's in a bag on New York subway. So people start putting larger dogs into bags to carry them along. Like I think there's photos of huskies in bags that were really quite cute.
I'm just going to get you to come up here, Rachel, and do the rest of the presentation. Because that was perfect answer. Yes, Rachel is completely right. So in the New York subway, they have a rule that you're not allowed dogs. Unless the dog is in a bag, okay? So this led to very many creative solutions of how to carry your dog on the New York subway, including one, as you've seen, where if you stick it in an IKEA bag with holes in the bottom, you can get your dog on the subway. Now, what's this got to do with creativity? So it's got to do with creativity because creativity isn't just the obvious things of design, architecture. There's many ways of being creative. You can be a creative chef. You can be a creative accountant, like Martin here. Just don't tell the tax department. You can be a creative recruiter. So creativity is an important skill in any walk of life. It's not just pixels and pretty things, okay? So who the hell am I? That sounds very existential, doesn't it? Okay. So I've been doing this stuff a really long time because when you said veteran, that's a polite way of saying he's really old, you know. I started doing it when I was at Queen's. I went to Queen's Open Night in 1993, and I still remember the moment when I was in the computer science wing and they said, "This is the internet," and I went, "Ooh," right? And then I started Queen's the next year, not doing computer science because I can't program; it's really, really complicated. So, but I did get into websites, and I created the Student Union's first website way back in 1994, and I kind of fell into doing websites. And in my mid-20s, a friend of mine from Queen's said, "Do you want to start up an online ad agency?" And I said, "Why not?" While agreeing to this, I had no idea what an online ad agency was, but it sounded like fun, so I might as well. And then I had this, I suppose I'll give the rest in the bio. Done the online ad agency for a few years. Then I had a minor, do you want to say burnout breakdown? Yeah, we'll go for breakdown. Then I went back to working for myself and doing web stuff. And then I created a SaaS business, which is a magic money tree, and I don't like to discuss it, lest any of you steal my idea. And then I also write. I run a website called Slugger Tool, which if anybody's into politics, it's Northern Ireland, so I would completely understand if you're not into politics. Where I depress myself on a daily basis trying to cover local politics. Okay, so I do lots of things, okay, but I'll stick with the creativity advertising stuff for now. Oh, getting way ahead of myself. And no, I'm not getting ahead of myself. Right. Creativity is intelligence having fun. Isn't that a nice quote? Okay, so after we decided to create an online ad agency, we had a small problem in that none of the three founders had ever worked in advertising. Okay? So this might have been a problem for some people, but I done what anyone would do in my situation. I joined an ad agency. I took an apprentice there for 5 years. I worked my way up the ladder. Did I fuck? I don't know none of that. I got on Amazon. I looked up books for advertising and marketing. And at the time, this is about 2000, 2001, there was one book on Amazon on digital advertising. I bought the book. It came on Thursday. I read the book over the weekend. And on Monday, I declared myself an expert in online advertising. Which, at the time, because no one else knew anything about online advertising, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and we were able to get funding to start this, and it actually worked out quite well. We had 19 staff in Belfast and Dublin. We had clients like BT and Aircom and Aer Lingus and Dell, etc. And yeah, so the key core message here is fake it till you make it, basically, you know. Unless you're doing surgery, in which case, just leave it to the professionals. Okay. So I was put in charge of the technology and the creative side. So I had this problem of I'd never actually created an ad. So how do you go about creating an ad? So again, I turned to Amazon and I looked up ideas of creativity in books, and I found this little book, A Technique for Producing Ideas. Now, has anyone worked in marketing or advertising in this room? Have you heard of this book? No. No? A little? Okay. It was written like in the 1930s. By this guy, James Webb Young. He worked for an ad agency in London. And he was trying to work out, well, how exactly do you come up with ideas and can you teach it? So he came up with this kind of framework, which I'll just give you a minute to read through. So the essential idea is you have a client who comes to you, thinking like, say, McDonald's, okay? McDonald's comes say, right, we want you to do an ad for us. So you say, wait, well, I'm going to research McDonald's, the background, the history, the menu, who's the customers, yada, 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 all this kind of stuff. And then the idea is that you let it work in your mind, you know, all the different facts and figures about McDonald's. Then what you do is you put the problem completely out of your head. You go away and do something else. And the theory is your little subconscious gets on with the task of coming up with something creative. And the next thing you know, you're in the shower or you're driving along and you're like, aha, double, triple, big fucking quadruple, Big Macs or something like that, whatever. Whatever the idea is, or elephants, I don't know what McDonald's does. And then you have the idea and then you present it to the client. The client is wooed and you then retire to your Swiss chalet or whatever advertising executives done in the 1930s and 40s. Okay? So it's quite a small book. I don't know if it's in the library. Damn if it is. It's like a little tiny book. You can also read it online because I think it's out of copyright, so you can read it. It's quite short. So that is how you produce ideas. And that's my talk, Oliver, I see. Okay. No. Right. Okay. So basically the idea is think of your mind as a slow cooker. Stick in all the ingredients. Walk away. Come back. And you have a delicious casserole several hours later is the basic principle, okay? So there's a few other things of creativity is it's pattern recognition and it's connecting things. So it's by taking different ideas, different areas, putting them together, trying to create something new is a large part of it, okay? And most important is paying attention, okay? Because noticing small details, little quirks, that is what makes things truly creative. So I'll give you an example. Who knows what this means? Who can say it? Is there any German speakers?
Vorsprung, durch, Technik.
That's a natural, our friend here from Hamburg, okay? Which means, bonus points.
We have the technology.
We have the technology? No. Anybody? Me personally? No, that's it. It actually, it means progress through technology. What slogan is that? What company?
Audi.
Audi, indeed. So, how did Audi come up with such a slogan? So the history is quite interesting. So Sir John Haggerty, he was in charge of the Audi account for their advertising agency in the UK, and he was on a tour of the Audi plant when he noticed this kind of poster on the wall. Now, the slogan had actually came up with one of Audi's in-house marketing people in 1972, but it was only used in the kind of German market and factory as a way of kind of giving a bit of ethos to the brand. So when he was looking around this factory, he's seen this poster, and whatever it was about the words, it kind of liked, you know? And the obvious thing to do would have been to translate it into English. But then he says, no, we'll keep it in the German. Which makes no sense because nobody really understands what it means. But it kind of sounds nice. So what Sir John Haggerty realised was that by keeping it in the German, keeping it complicated, it kind of gives the brand a certain cachet, this kind of, as he said, exotic, high-end, uncompromising. And it's still nearly 50... I don't know, 1982, what was that? 40 odd years later, it's still Audi's main brand, just because he noticed it on a poster in a factory, okay? And that's important because whenever you do work online and you never leave the office, you never visit clients, you never visit our factories, you never visit our offices, you won't see those little details. And that's why it's important to get away from your screens and get out and meet people and see things and not just do everything online, you know? Okay, next one. George, any French speakers? George de Mistral. Guy went for a walk in the woods, noticing the little the seeds stuck to his wool trousers. He examined them, saw the little hooks, and then he said, what if you could create a fastener with these little things stuck together? And that's her Velcro. Now, if George de Mistral was doing that today, he would be walking in the woods listening to a podcast or music, and he wouldn't even notice the little things at all. He'd be too busy learning about Trump's latest insanity or the history of the Velvet Underground, whatever he was into at the time. Okay. So again, it's this idea of paying attention and noticing, that's odd, you know? Oh, did I miss one? The microwave. Percy, this was during the Second World War, Percy Spencer stood in front of this active magnetron and possibly fried himself as well as his peanut butter chocolate bar. And again, he noticed that the chocolate had melted. And then he thought, well, why is that happening? And from that realization, he came up with the microwave, which I'm sure everyone has in their kitchens. Does anybody not have a microwave? Is it for the health reasons?
No, just because we moved house and we didn't have a microwave, and then we just managed to get on without it, so just don't have a microwave.
Do you have an air fryer?
Nope. I have a pressure cooker.
As a private chef.
Yeah, a private chef, that's probably it. Yeah, because every now and again I have these friends who are like really against microwaves. I love a microwave, you know, it's great. So that's how he invented. So by this kind of research, World War, all this kind of stuff, you get the thing that heats up your Marks and Spencer's ready meal. Genius. The Wright brothers. Again says there, originally bicycle mechanics. Because there's a very important thing in creativity. You only know what you know, right? Which is a way of saying that if you have a specialism, you view everything through the lens of that specialism. So if you have anxiety, for example, and you rock up to a stomach doctor, he's going to say your anxiety is stomach related, some kind of production, IBS, yada, yada, yada. If you rock up to a psychologist, they're going to say your anxiety is in your head, some kind of chemical imbalance or whatever in your body. If you rock up to some Freudian psychologist, they're going to say something weird about your childhood. If you rock up to a dietitian, they're going to say it's something in your diet. So you get the idea. A certain specialist, they view everything through the lens of what they know, okay? And that can be a problem because if you only see what you know, then you don't see other things. So because it says here, people were trying to make planes as ships in the sky. And the Wright brothers says, no, that's not how you do it. Because they're familiar with bicycles. If you know a bicycle, it does not stand up on its own. Unless we get into Flann O'Brien and the third policeman and metaphysics. Is that reference gone way over all your heads? Anyway, so they knew that a bike, it works when momentum, it doesn't fall over. And they applied the same kind of principles to flight. And that is how they invented the airplane before everyone else. So sometimes, if you are stuck, what you actually need is to get somebody in from a completely unrelated discipline and say, what would you do in this scenario? Because it gives you like fresh eyes on a problem. The problem with all this, okay? Who knows what this is?
Screen.
The Scream by,
And rugby.
who was?
Swedish?
Norwegian. He said Norwegian? Looks like artist story in here in the corner. Okay, now what is the Scream about? That lady with a cook can and blonde hair.
It's actually about somebody screaming in the background and he's covering his ears so he can't hear it.
Okay. Is there any other interpretations of the picture?
Oh, that's like an upside down spandrel's head. I heard somebody say that.
Well, yeah, that's another. There's three interpretations. Well, another interpretation of the picture is the character screaming? Or is he hearing a scream? So you can look at it two ways, okay? Now, we'll let the artist explain himself. He sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. Those Norwegians are prone to melodrama, I don't know. Now, people actually think he was having a bit of an old panic attack, poor guy. But still, out of his panic attack, we got a world famous painting. But I like the scream because if you look at it, the both ways of he's hearing the scream or he is screaming. But if we take the rather more friendlier Homer version, if Homer is covering his ears against the noise, I think this is a pretty good metaphor for the modern age, because this is our daily reality for most of us in this room, where we have this constant noise and input from internet, media, news, Twitter, Instagram. I forgot Spotify, music, podcasts, YouTube, magazines, Substacks, TV, films. So all this stuff is kind of constantly coming into all our heads every day. And we're like, poor Homer here, just kind of trying to cover our ears against the noise, So the problem of all that is when your brain gets overwhelmed, it stops problem solving and it flips the autopilot. You stop thinking about what you're doing and start doing what you've always done. So in cookery terms, you're not creating a meal from scratch, you're pulling out a ready meal. So your body, your mind especially, has little programs that it runs for shortcuts to save energy. So you notice like when you're driving to work or a friend's house, you don't fully realize, you just go on autopilot, you're just driving along or whatever you're doing. And that's the thing about creativity, because whenever you have this autopilot response, so you're in web design, you have a new client coming in, they're a cafe, you immediately start thinking, they need a menu, they need a map space, they need a blah, 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 blah. It just triggers all off. So you don't really step back to take a kind of creative approach to it, you just go on autopilot. And that's the same what happens when you visit your GP. You drop out your GP and says a wee bit of a cough, he thinks, well, it's a cough, it's going to be a infection, it's going to be this, that, blah, 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 blah. And he's trying to work his way down the wee list to try to work out what it is you've got, okay? So, but again, the problem with that, just to be clear, is you're not being creative then. You're just regurgitating the same shite over and over again. which can work to a certain level. But if you're trying to do something different or problem solve, then you have an issue around that, okay? And that's why I think a lot of people find in the modern world they're losing their creativity because their heads are just melted with all this kind of noise coming at us. So what do you do about it? How do you get the creativity back? Or is it gone forever? So the basic lesson is we're likely all overstimulated, except this lady over here without the air fryer or microwave. Have you a television?
I do.
Okay. Have you Wi-Fi?
Yes. I don't live in a cave.
Hmm?
I don't live in a cave, I promise. Well, I wish I did, though.
What have you got against caves? It's kind of, temperature regulating. Okay, so yes, it's all these inputs coming in, blah, 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 blah. So the basic message is that to be bored more, and we all hate being bored. We're all in the queue at the coffee shop or at Lidl, and we pull out our phones and we have a quick check of Instagram or Twitter. And every time you do that, you're just creating this kind of more and more noise in your head. And it means, if we go back to our example at the start, that the brain needs that little downtime to get on with the slow cooking job of coming up with ideas, processing things, all that. And whenever you don't give it, it just makes, that's why everyone is so tired. I was listening to a podcast the other day from a GP, and he says, like, the number one reason people visit their GPs these days is this unexplained tiredness. We're all tired, okay? And the main reason is this kind of mental load of trying, there's so much inputs coming in at us all the time. So when you reduce the noise, your brain can get on the task with coming up with the new ideas, okay? Now here's a little thing I came across on Substack. Then couldn't find again, so I can't credit the lady who wrote it. But the idea is that it shows the different things that you can do, which are kind of more positive, down towards negative in terms of affecting your kind of creativity and mental load. So bad news for any gamers who really like porn, that's kind of not great. So at the top, you see things like musical instruments, language, surprisingly coding from scratch. Not just knocking out the vibe codey shit, but actual real world old school coding. Drawing, puzzles, reading fiction, all these things very good for us. All the stuff at the bottom, scrolling. I forgot I would have put gambling down there as well. Any of these things, very kind of dopamine sticky towards the bottom. If you can kind of stick top section, you'll be doing great. Now, health advice is pretty much universal. Don't drink too much, don't do drugs, go to bed early, eat healthy food, good relationships. It's pretty much the same advice for absolutely fucking everything. But in terms of creativity, the single thing lesson I will leave you with is walking in nature, and this is the important thing, without your headphones in, they say is pretty much the best thing anyone can do. Or even a local park, walking to work, walking back from work, walking your dog, walking your child, walking your mother, walking your sex slave, I don't know, whatever he's up to get up to. Just walking in nature is good, okay? But without the headphones in. I know it's very tempting, and I love it, and I love my AirPods, and it's very tempting to stick on a podcast and go for a wee dander. But if you can, just leave it out, because it gives a chance. The brain loves nature, patterns, all that kind of stuff. Low-key stimulation, trees, leaves, flowers, blah, 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 blah. All that is good stuff. So as much as you can get that as possible every day is absolutely great for your creativity. Yeah, I mean, I'm anticipating the pushback I was going to get on telling you all to go for a walk without any headphones. Because the problem, who has the thing where if they don't have some noise, the noise in their head gets loud? Fuck off. These are all liars, right? Let's try that again. More honesty. This is a safe space, right? Try it again. Who gets the noises in their head? Right, you two. Wait, what's wrong? Are you like some Buddhist meditators, or was this corner here? What's going on? You know, nothing. Yeah, all of you. The Buddhist corner. You know.
It's always there. It's never not there. Noise. You said it. Unless I put something, there's noise. It's there.
Oh, maybe it's the phrasing of my question. So you've still got the internal chatter. Okay. Maybe it's why I was phrasing it then. Okay. Yeah, because I particularly have the squirrels in the 24/7 rave in my head. I won't lie, it's hard because getting the squirrels to chill the fuck out is difficult. But the idea is that the only real way you can build it up is by practicing it. So if you can go start 10 minutes walk without any noise, or even switch your podcast from something kind of not Donald Trump wind you up, something a bit more relaxing, and then you can go down to music, and you can go down to music, you can go from AC/DC down to more relaxing classical, you can kind of progress through. So it doesn't have to be immediate, but the more you can kind of do it, you will find that your system does start to feel calmer. And it can happen quite quick over a few weeks, so do give it a try.
Bilateral stimulation, Brian. It's not porn on your list.
Yeah, it does, like binaural beats and stuff like that. Yeah. There is, and there's also Brain FM. There's these kind of apps for music, which I tried it, but I don't really. But it's worth trying. They'll all get free tries. Or even on Spotify, there's different playlists for concentration and things. So, why is all this important? Because in the modern world of distraction, being able to focus is going to be one of the most valuable skills there is. Now, I see this all over the place. Even as part of one of my jobs writing for Slugger, politicians have no fucking attention spans. The reason why this country is so fucked is none of them have any attention spans. They do not read the reports they're given. They get summaries. They skim the summaries. They're busy on friggin' Twitter or arguing about this here. They have no capacity to absorb or make complex decisions. And that is the same for us all. And even I do it, because some of these reports coming in, the first thing you do is stick it up, open the eye and say, give me a summary of this damn thing, you know? So it is, we're all kind of doing it. But it means that the people who are going to be successful when the AI overlords come for all our jobs is the people who have some kind of focus and the ability to be calm, to be rational, to think outside the box, to give kind of solutions that aren't just, you know, the same old crap. So that is what I would say to the people, especially if they're new, is work on your focus as much as you can, because that's going to be the difference between having a career and probably not having a career. And you do find this, a lot of very successful business people have this kind of bit of a zen thing about them. You know, like Steve Jobs is a classic example. You know, he is that ability to kind of be calm, to kind of make the big decisions, see the broader picture, see all that kind of stuff come together, is a pretty important skill. Okay, a public safety message for the neurodivergent. I can't give a presentation in a room of creatives and techie people without assuming half of you are probably wondering if you've got ADHD or autism, and what that means. Because I'm pretty much certain I'm on some kind of spectrum myself, and always have been. But what I'm discovering is this stuff is a particular problem if you're off that inclination. Who knows who these people are? But who are they? Who's the first one? Janis Joplin? Somebody different. You lady.
Me?
No, one behind you. Okay. And anybody else? Anybody to the back? And the other ones in the middle? Anybody? No? Jim Morrison, indeed. Nobody know poor old Jimi Hendrix? Yeah. What about the guy with a polo neck? Or Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones. So, what have all these people got in common? The lady said it, wasn't it? The 27 Club, indeed. Now, yeah, they all died at 27, which is a particularly important year for rock stars killing themselves. What's this got to do with my talk? Good question. I always think creativity, I think, in a lot of ways, is a mental illness, okay? It is a double-edged sword, and that if you have any knowledge of creative people, artists, musicians, a lot of them have a tendency to go completely fucking nuts and go crazy, okay? So this stuff tends to be a yin-yang kind of thing. God says, I will make you creative. God also says, I will balance it out by making you kind of depressed and anxious and every other problem. And
that's probably true, though, because a lot of these people did a lot of drugs.
yeah, I know, but the thing about the drugs and the alcohol, and again, this example, is because they're taking it to kind of cope with this kind of pressures of fame, to cope with the pressures of...
It could be past trauma.
Well, it could be. But again, trauma is creative. A lot of creative people have crazy childhoods. There was a research that says the best thing you can do for your children to be successful is for you to die young and tragically. So, which, you know, it's just an option. I'm just putting it out there, you know. Yeah. So you will find a lot of billionaires, famous people, there's always some kind of tragic backstory. Steve Jobs is a classic one. He was adopted and all this here. They're all messed up. So now these guys are obviously the extreme example, right, of what can go horribly wrong. But for the rest of us,
Jobs took a lot of hallucinogenics too. At times, that's where he got a lot of his creativity from.
well, yeah, and the Beatles and say,
On a hallucinogenic trip before it went into a new project.
yep. So the problem, if you are kind of neurodivergent, is we absolutely love information. But the problem with the internet is that it's bottomless. It never ends. Like, I'm old enough to remember a time when if you needed to learn something, you would go to the library, which was a big building with books in it, okay, and you walked in, okay. The library is only open certain hours a day. If you wanted to know something about whatever, you had to wait for the building to open. You would go in, you would go and look for the books. There used to be a big thing of Encyclopedia Britannias. And there was a slowness. So now if we need to know anything, you're pulling out your phone, you're Googling it, you're asking AI, everything's instant. And all this stuff's coming at us and coming at us. But the problem is, there's no end. And if any of us get enough thing where you're researching a topic, or you want to write stuff and you're working on a project, you just spend all your time research. You never actually get on with the task in hand, you know? And that is a real problem. So I think that if you are of this persuasion, you kind of need to view information as kind of alcohol for the brain and treat it with extreme caution of all these inputs. And you need to have the boundaries, the guardrails. Like, I do things like I don't check social media or Reddit. Reddit's my drug of choice. It's my heroin for the brain. I don't do it on my phone. I only do it on my desktop computer because I know it'll be like 4 hours later on the damn thing. So if you can have the boundaries, have the restrictions, use some blocker apps, turn on screen time settings. A good one is if you're on an iPhone, turn on the screen time settings, get a friend to set the passcode so you can't overlock it. So there's all these little tips you can do. But you have to kind of view it as just a problem substance, as crazy as it sounds. Okay, I'll finish with an example. I was at a friend's brother's funeral yesterday, and I was driving back. And normally in my car I'd stick on like a podcast or some music or whatever to kill the journey. And I decided no, because I'm doing a talk tomorrow night on creativity and I have to practice what I preach. So I will have nothing. I will just drive and let my brain do its thing. And as I was driving along, I noticed a house for sale. And there was a for sale sign out the front. And then I thought to myself, how would you know what house to look up if you're passing that sign? How do you go and find out, you know? So what about an idea if you stuck a QR code on the house sign, and you pull out your phone, scan the QR code, links you to the Property Pal or wherever. And then I thought, well, if you're doing that, if you're an estate agent, you need some kind of system, you know, to manage the links, where it's going to redirect to. Is it going to Property Pal? Is it going to Property News? And then I thought, the estate agents don't actually put the signs up themselves. It's in a company they pay to go around and do the signs. So you would have to actually probably sell the solution to them. So anyway, all this is going on in my head. And that is pretty much an example of how people come up with ideas. You're out and about, you're seeing something, you're like, oh, that's clever, why don't I try this and try that? And it may not always work out, but if it does work out, that is how it works. And the alternative could have been listen to a podcast, blah, 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 blah. My brain doesn't get a chance to switch off, so I wouldn't even seen the for sale sign. Now maybe nothing will come out of my QR code idea, or maybe this time next year it's going to be selling all over the world, who knows. So, but it's just a thing of whatever it is, to be open, to be saying stuff, looking out for little connections, is creativity. So that's a summary of my 30 slides. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.